A massive green explosion erupts across the landscape, sending shockwaves through the air. Watching from a distance, the soldiers realize why God General Liu ordered them to retreat at least 5 kilometers away. They stand in awe of the destructive force being unleashed. The soldiers recognize that if they hadn't moved back, they would have been caught in the terrifying poisonous fog. As they witness the sheer scale of the attack, one soldier admits he never expected God General Liu to be this powerful, wondering if the enemy God can even survive the impact. Inside the swirling green energy, the creature is ravaged by the poisonous fog. Battered and struggling to maintain its form, the being is forced to endure the full weight of the general's technique. The creature is left reeling from the overwhelming display of human strength. The creature asks if this is the true power of a 3-star human god general. The general looks on coldly and confirms his rank, explaining that being a 3-star god general means he has already slaughtered 3 beings exactly like it. The creature stares in utter disbelief, repeating the number 3 as the weight of the general's words sinks in. It is visibly shaken to learn that it is not the first of its kind to face such overwhelming power. The realization that 3 other god-level beings have already fallen to this man leaves the creature momentarily stunned. Breaking into a sudden, manic laugh, the being finally understands the reality of the situation. It admits that the general's lack of fear now makes perfect sense. Knowing the general has successfully slaughtered others like it, the creature sees why its presence failed to intimidate its opponent. As its body begins to surge with an intense light, the creature prepares for its end. It acknowledges that it is about to become the 4th god-level existence the general has killed. However, it remains defiant, declaring that even in death, it will maintain its dignity as a god and will not go out quietly. The creature's physical form begins to dissolve into a brilliant white glow, leaving behind its core essence. A sharp, blue diamond-shaped crystal hovers in the air where the being once stood. As the light fades, this glowing remnant serves as the final proof of the creature's defeat at the hands of the 3-star god general. The protagonist suddenly realizes the gravity of the situation as the enemy's floating essence begins to react. In a moment of panic, he shouts that the being is about to self-detonate its divine core. He recognizes that this final act of defiance is a catastrophic threat to everyone on the battlefield. As a blinding light begins to emanate from the core, the general frantically orders everyone to retreat immediately. He screams for his men to run as far away as they possibly can, knowing that the range of the impending explosion will be devastating for anyone left behind. The divine core erupts with overwhelming power, surging across the landscape with a deafening roar. The force of the explosion tears through the sky, filling the air with chaotic purple and white energy as the god-level being's final trump card is fully unleashed upon the world. In the aftermath of the blast, the surviving soldiers are left dazed and disoriented by the sheer scale of the destruction. As they struggle to regain their footing amidst the dust and energy, they look around in total confusion, wondering what on earth just happened. The self-detonation of the divine core triggers a cataclysmic explosion that rips through the battlefield. A massive pillar of white and blue energy spirals upward, shattering the surrounding environment with sheer force. The ground trembles as the concentrated power of a god-level existence is released all at once. Jagged shards of light and solidified energy are launched in every direction, turning the area into a deadly storm of debris. The shockwave continues to expand, obliterating anything caught in its immediate path. The blinding light reaches its peak intensity, consuming the horizon in a display of raw, destructive power. Amidst the chaos, a streak of cyan light cuts through the blast as the general uses his incredible speed to navigate the danger. Trailing a brilliant aura, he maneuvers through the spiraling energy currents, pushing his own power to the limit. He fights against the gravitational pull of the explosion to make it to safety. As the explosion finally begins to dissipate, the sky is filled with falling fragments and fading energy trails. The once blinding light settles into a rain of debris, leaving the battlefield silent and transformed. The final, desperate act of the god-level being has ended, leaving only the remnants of its power behind. The shockwave from the self-detonation slams into the surrounding mountains, physically altering the terrain. The sheer force of the impact sends jagged debris flying as the energy from the core finally reaches its limit. The landscape is left scarred and buried under the weight of the massive explosion. As the dust begins to settle, the general is seen kneeling on the ground, his clothes torn and his body covered in bruises. He observes the aftermath, noting that the enemy's undead legion was almost completely wiped out by the blast. He expresses relief that the self-destruction resulted in only a single, massive wave rather than a sustained eruption. Standing alone against the backdrop of a towering cloud of debris, the general looks out over the hollowed-out battlefield. The massive vortex of energy and dust serves as a grim reminder of the god-level being's final act. Silence returns to the area, though the devastation left behind is absolute. Looking toward the horizon, the general admits that the outcome is a pity. He explains that because the enemy chose to self-destruct rather than being killed in combat, he is unable to gain any experience or official military merit from the encounter. Despite his victory, he walks away from the battle with no formal reward for his efforts. In the wake of the devastating explosion, the soldiers slowly emerge from the rubble, shaken to their core. They look back at the scorched landscape, admitting that the experience was absolutely terrifying. They realize that if they hadn't followed God General Liu's order to retreat, they would all be dead. Holding a glowing green remnant of the enemy, the general pieced together how the Kunlun snow god managed to track him. He realizes that the creature likely sensed the divine position within his body through this very object. He suspects the Kunlun snowgrass he obtained after solo clearing a dungeon was actually the snow god's true body all along. As the energy begins to settle, a small, purple worm-like parasite is revealed, encased in a faint violet orb. The creature clings to a blade of grass, seemingly surviving the massive blast that obliterated everything else. It remains hidden and quiet, waiting for the right moment to make its move. Unnoticed by the general, the tiny purple creature successfully leaps from the grass and attaches itself to the back of his neck. As he stands lost in thought about the battle's strange outcome, the parasite begins to burrow in. While the battle seems over, a new and more personal threat has just begun. The small purple parasite continues its silent invasion, burrowing deeper into the general's skin. It successfully hitches a ride, completely undetected as it settles into its new host. While the general believes the battle has concluded, this hidden threat is now moving with him toward his next destination. Later, the general sits down for tea with a companion to discuss the recent encounter. His companion is visibly surprised by the mention of the Kunlun snow god, admitting that he has never heard of such an entity existing within the Kunlun mountain range. The appearance of this unknown power seems to be a complete anomaly. Looking stressed and visibly sweating, the general suggests that the entity might have been a newly born god. He explains his suspicion that the being shared a deep, intrinsic connection with the snowgrass he had previously obtained. The weight of the mystery clearly bothers him as he tries to piece together the creature's origin. The companion listens intently and instructs the general to take out the snowgrass immediately. He offers to have a man named Old Wang inspect it, noting that he is an expert who knows a great deal about these types of mysterious objects. They hope that a professional analysis will finally reveal the truth behind the snow god's appearance. Moyu agrees to the plan, but his physical condition rapidly begins to deteriorate. He is shown leaning over, struggling to catch his breath as a heavy, labored wheezing takes over. Despite his attempts to remain upright, the strain on his body becomes visible. Without warning, Moyu loses his footing and collapses completely. His companion watches in shock as Moyu's body goes limp and falls toward the ground. The sudden turn of events leaves his ally shouting his name in alarm as the situation turns critical. The companion rushes to catch Moyu, holding him as he remains unconscious and drenched in sweat. He begs Moyu not to scare him and frantically asks what is wrong. but Moyu remains unresponsive. The heavy breathing continues as his condition remains dangerously unstable. Moyu is eventually placed in bed to recover, but he remains trapped in a deep, feverish state. He lies under the covers, pale and still struggling for air as his body fights whatever is afflicting him. The mystery of his sudden collapse hangs over the room as he stays lost in an unresponsive sleep. As Moyu remains unconscious in bed, a woman carefully attends to him, preparing a small red bottle of medicine to help stabilize his condition. The room is quiet as she works, but the tension among the others remains high as they wait for any sign of improvement from the fallen general. The general's companions consult with an expert named Old Shu to check on Moyu's status. Old Shu admits that he is unable to identify the exact problem with God General Liu. He explains that the only clear observation is that the general's vitality is being continuously drained away by an unknown source. Old Shu describes the sensation inside the general's body as a bottomless pit that is constantly devouring his life force. He notes that the rate of this drainage is so extreme that it would normally turn a person into a dried corpse instantly. However, he finds it strange that the force doesn't seem intent on finishing him off just yet. The group stands together in deep thought, looking toward the bed where the general lies in a silhouette. After analyzing the situation further, Old Shu delivers a startling conclusion. He confirms that despite how it looks, these symptoms are definitely not caused by poisoning, leaving the true nature of the affliction a mystery. As Moyu remains in a feverish sleep, Old Shu deepens his diagnosis. He concludes that the affliction is not physical. Instead, he believes the root of the problem lies within the general's soul. This revelation shifts the focus of the group from physical healing to a much more dangerous spiritual crisis. The companions react with visible shock to the mention of the soul. One man nervously wonders if a legendary soul-devouring beast could be responsible for the general's condition. They realize that if his soul is truly being targeted, the danger to his life is far greater than they initially suspected. Determined to find the cause, a massive, dark tower-like structure is summoned or activated within the room. Bathed in a sinister red glow and surrounded by sparks of energy, it serves as a powerful tool for the companion to investigate. He declares his intent to take a closer look at the general's spiritual state. Under the influence of the tower's power, the general's spiritual essence begins to react. A glowing pink silhouette of his soul starts to manifest, hovering just above his physical body as he continues to breathe heavily. The visible separation of his soul confirms the dire nature of the spiritual drain he is currently enduring. As the investigation deepens, a purple, glowing entity begins to force its way out of the general's spiritual essence. The companions shout for everyone to be careful, realizing that the source of the drain is finally revealing itself. They watch in suspense as the thing prepares to emerge fully into the room. The entity reveals itself as a terrifying, glowing purple parasitic insect with multiple legs and piercing eyes. It manifests with a screech, showing its true monstrous form to the shocked onlookers. This parasitic creature is the physical manifestation of the threat that has been relentlessly consuming the general's life force. In response to the creature's emergence, the Dark Tower's structure erupts with a blinding red light. It pulses with intense energy, focusing its power directly on the parasitic beast. The companion uses the tool to create a containment field, preparing to neutralize the monster before it can escape or find a new host. Glowing red rings of energy slam into the parasite, binding it tightly and forcing it into a state of total constraint. The tower's sealing technique successfully traps the creature within a pillar of light, preventing it from causing any further harm. With the parasite finally pulled out and restrained, the immediate danger to the general's soul is brought under control. Moyu finally begins to regain consciousness as his eyes slowly flutter open. After enduring the intense extraction of the parasite, he wakes up from his deep, feverish sleep and starts to process his surroundings once again. The young woman at his bedside is filled with visible relief to see him opening his eyes. She joyfully tells him that he is finally awake and admits that his sudden collapse and deteriorating condition had left her worried sick. Still feeling the lingering aftereffects of the spiritual drain, Moyu clutches his head in pain and confusion. He is visibly sweating and disoriented, struggling to remember the events leading up to his collapse as he asks her what exactly happened to him. The woman explains that her grandfather identified the cause as a parasite called a soul-devouring beast. Moyu repeats the name in shock, finally understanding that a spiritual predator had been living inside him and devouring his essence the entire time. The young woman points directly toward the captive creature, identifying the source of Moyu's suffering. The soul-devouring beast is suspended in mid-air, completely immobilized as it remains under the heavy influence of the magical containment field.